Hello and welcome to ACT Prep. I'm your English teacher, Miss Hebert. We have been going over and reviewing your practice test and looking at what answers are the best answers, and you've been working with a group and sometimes with a partner. What we're going to be doing today is reviewing the next passage, which is passage 4, that you were to not only look at why the answers were the best answers, but also why the other answers were not the best answers. You were to complete that with a partner, and today we're going to go over that as a whole class so that you can make notes and you can make those decisions for yourself and see why these are the best answers. So let's get started. So as always, we will chunk the text. We will look at one question at a time. And so make sure you have your test in front of you and that you are prepared to get started with your day. Well, let's get started with item number 46. Item number 46 is about the Captain Charles Young's Road to the Giant Sequoias. That's the passage for passage 4. Item number 46 does not have a question stem, but the best answer is J. It is the only option that doesn't have a misplaced modifier. The sentence's introductory phrase correctly modifies giant sequoia trees because the trees are able to grow as tall as 26-story building and as wide as a city street. The correct answer is not F because the introductory phrase incorrectly modifies Earth, suggesting that the planet can grow as tall as a 26-story building and as wide as the city street. That doesn't make any sense. The best answer is not G. The introductory phrase incorrectly modifies the pronoun it, suggesting that it can grow. Well, we don't know what it is describing, or we don't know what it is as far as the noun that it's referring to. H, the introductory phrase incorrectly modifies on Earth, resulting in an unclear and illogical sentence. All right, are we ready to move to 47? We're going to move through these rather quickly because I'm excited for you to work independently on passage 5. So, item number 47, the best answer is C. It provides the most logical transition from the previous sentence's description of giant sequoia trees generally to the following sentence's details about the lack of road access to the giant forest. It is logical to focus this sentence on the giant sequoia groves in Sequoia National Park. The best answer, or the other options, none of those provide a logical sequence. And so you want to make sure that your sentence is logical. So let's look at those other answers, or logical transition. A, the number of caves in the park provides no logical transition from the description of the giant sequoia trees generally to the details about the lack of road access to the giant forest. B is not the best and most logical answer because the information about the endangered species provides no logical transition of giant sequoia trees. And D, the park's percentage of wilderness provides no logical transition from the description of the sequoia trees to the lack of road access to the giant forest. I did fail to mention that 47 does have a sentence stem. It asks, given that all the choices are accurate, which one provides the most effective transition? So it's assuming that all of this information is accurate, but which one provides the most logical? And the most logical best answer is C. So make sure you've written that down, and we are ready to move to item number 48. Item number 48, the best answer is F. 48 also, again, has no question stem. F is the best answer choice because it's the only option that has correct sentence structure. We're going to talk about punctuation in some subsequent lessons and what that punctuation means, but you should know it is number 48, F. uses a colon to illustrate what comes before the colon, in this case to explain why visitors couldn't access the park. And it separates two independent clauses. The best answer is not G, because it uses a colon to indicate a sharp break in the sentence and then uses the subordinating conjunction because. H incorrectly uses a semicolon to introduce a dependent clause. Semicolons should only be used to connect two independent clauses. J is not the best answer because it incorrectly uses a semicolon to introduce a phrase. Semicolons should only be used to connect two independent clauses. Question 49 does not have a question stem. The best answer is A, because the parenthetical information about the Army being responsible for improving national parks is a non-restrictive clause that needs to be set off from the sentence's main clause with appropriate punctuation. We're going to talk about restrictive and non-restrictive clauses in a subsequent lesson. You can look for that. But in the meantime, when a non-restrictive clause comes in the middle of a sentence, the punctuation used on either side must match. Because the non-restrictive clause ends with a dash after months, it must be introduced by a parallel dash after Army. The best answer is not B, because it places the dash after the word which, making which part of the main clause instead of the non-restrictive clause. C is not the best answer because the non-restrictive clause ends with a dash, so it cannot be introduced by a comma. D is not the best answer because in this sentence, the non-restrictive clause ends with a dash again, so it cannot be introduced by a comma. And like B, the punctuation has been incorrectly placed after the word which. Now it's time for question 50. Let's move on to question 50. Question 50 says the best answer is J. All of the other responses use prepositional phrases that create an unclear sentence. So the best answer is J because the phrase of the road to supplies the correct idiomatic prepositional phrase needed to make the sentence logical. None of those others have the correct idiomatic prepositional phrase to make the sentence logical and makes it unclear. We ready to move to 51? Told you we're going to move fast. All right, 51. 51 does not have a question stem. The best answer is A because it is the only option that has correct sentence structure. It creates a complete sentence with a main clause that includes a subject and a verb. The best answer is not B. It is a sentence fragment. It does not provide a main verb to accompany the subject young. In answer choice C, what precedes the semicolon is not an independent clause. Again, semicolons should only be used to connect two independent clauses. The best answer is not D because what precedes the period is not an independent clause. Placing a period here turns the phrase before the period into a sentence fragment. All right, we ready to move to the next set? I hope you've written down your correct answers. If you need to pause at any point, you are welcome to pause so that you can write down this information on your test as you get prepared to do this independently. So let's look at number 52. Number 52 says the best, it does not have a question stem. The best answer is G. The G provides the most logical conjunction to frame the ideas presented in the sentence, although helps communicate the fact that Young was also concerned about maintaining the park's natural features despite the fact that the most of the troops' efforts were devoted to the road. The other responses use illogical conjunctions in the context. We're going to do an entire lesson on conjunctions, I believe. It's coming in some subsequent lessons. you need to understand how conjunctions are used and make sure that you use the most appropriate conjunctions when you are joining two sentences. So you need to know what is a subordinating conjunction and what is a coordinating conjunction and how they work. You're going to need to know that in order to be successful on the ACT. Are you ready to move to the next one? Let's move on. On question 53, the best answer is B. The word channel is precise and appropriately expresses the fact that troops were focusing their efforts on the road. All of the other responses are illogical and imprecise in the context of describing the troops' efforts. We're going to move to the next section. The next question is 54. 54, the best answer is G, because the transition word additionally signals clearly and logically that this sentence is related to and builds on the previous sentence's ideas of the troops guarding the park's grounds. Additionally is a transition word, and you're going to need to know what these transition words mean so that when you are connecting two sentences or you're adding information, or even some other words might be to take away. Although is one that might say, although this happened, this is the greater plan. So you need to know what those transition words mean, just like you need to understand what those conjunctions mean. Let's look at why these other responses are not the best response or the best answer. So F, the transition word nevertheless suggests that the idea in this sentence opposes the idea in the preceding sentence, which is illogical. The transition word thus in the response H suggests a cause and effect relationship with the idea in the sentence, which is also illogical. And then answer choice J is not the best response because the transition word still suggests that the actions described in this sentence happened despite the actions described in the previous sentence, which is illogical. We're going to take a minute because I want you to write down those transition words and what they mean, or make sure that you write that down on your test in front of you so that you have what those words mean in this particular context. All right, let's move on to question 55. Question 55 also does not have a question stem. The best answer is C. It's the only answer that maintains the overall style and tone of the essay. The language here is neither overly informal nor too formal. If you look at answer choice A, the wording is too formal it's too informal compared to the rest of the essay. Answer choice B, the wording does maintain the overall style and tone of the essay, but the phrase further harm already expresses the idea of protecting the trees in the future, making in the future redundant. Remember, we talked about that word redundant in some of our previous lessons. D, the wording is too formal compared to the rest of the essay. So always look at how the wording progresses throughout the essay. And as you're reading, if you come across something and you're like, that doesn't sound like the rest of the essay, then your ears are working well, or the voice inside your head is working well and helping you understand tone and style. We ready to move to 56? 56 does not have a question stem. The best answer is H. It's the only option with correct subject-verb agreement. A plural subject, contributions, must have a plural verb. We're going to talk about subject-verb agreement in some future lessons as well. All of the other answer choices contain singular verbs, and the subject of the sentence is plural, so you would have to have those match. All right, 57 does have a question stem, so let's look at it. 57 says, at this point, the writer is considering adding the following true statement. Park enthusiast George Palmer was the one who petitioned the National Park Service to recognize Young's contributions. So it's asking you to make a judgment. Should the writer make this addition here where that box 57 is? And so you have to first decide, yes or no, and then your reasoning behind the yes or no. So the best answer is D. No, the wording, the phrase should not be added. Why? Because D clearly explains why the new sentence should not be added. The information about who petitioned the National Park Service to recognize Captain Young is not directly relevant to the paragraph nor the essay. So you have to look at the entire essay. Is it about his nomination or is it about his award? And so you have to look at the entire context of the essay in order to decide, no, it doesn't belong here. Okay? The other answers, if you had chosen those, the correct answer is not A. The proposed addition does not explain why it took so long for the National Park Service to recognize Captain Young, so the sentence should not be added. In answer choice B, there's no information to indicate that Palmer inspired Young's actions, and so the context would suggest that Palmer petitioned the National Park Service sometime after Young completed his work. So again, it should not be added. C is not the best answer because while it does understandably say that the sentence should not go there, it does not suggest that other people had already petitioned the National Park Service to recognize Young. So the sentence should not be added. We ready to move on to 58? Okay, let's look at 58. The best answer is H because it is the only option that has the correct sentence structure. It correctly forms a dependent clause with the word who as a subject and had been as a verb. The other response is F. Being, the word being, is a present participle. It's not a main verb. And so this creates a phrase instead of a clause. For the answer choice G, the phrase having been results in a phrase instead of a clause because it lacks a main verb. And J, although the word promoted is a verb, it lacks a necessary helping verb which doesn't create a clause. And so again, the best answer choice is H. All right, we're getting close, aren't we? Let's keep moving along. The next question is 59, and 59 does have a question stem. Which of the following choices best concludes the sentence and the essay? So we're looking at the end of the essay. We obviously want to make some changes because the best answer is B. The information that there is a tree named after Young alongside of other trees named after prominent people is the best conclusion of the context of this paragraph's discussion of the National Park Service recognizing Young's efforts. The choice resonates with the essay's overall appreciative description of Young's work in Sequoia National Park. A is not the best answer. The detail about the world's largest tree isn't related to the essay's focus on Young's work in the park. Therefore, it is not a fitting conclusion. C, the details about present-day activities in the giant forest aren't closely related to the essay's focus on Young's work. And then D is not the best answer because the claim that the giant forest is a popular spot to visit isn't closely related to the essay's focus on Young's work. So you see all of this. Now let's move on to the last question in this essay. So remember we talked about the last question in a passage likely will have to do with the entire passage, and this one does. Question 60 actually asks about the preceding passage as a whole. It's looking at the entire passage. And the question says, suppose the writer's primary purpose had been to provide an overview of the history of the Sequoia National Park. Would this essay accomplish that purpose? So you have to ask yourself, what is the primary purpose of this essay? And so when you read it, you understand that the primary purpose of this essay is to recognize Young and his contributions to the giant forest. So does the essay also achieve the purpose of providing an overview of the history of the park? And so it does not, right? It does not give a proper history of the park. It's really only talking about Young's contributions. There are a few pieces of history embedded in there, but not enough to really give a history of the park. So let's look at why the best answer choice is J and why the others are not the best answer choice. J, this option clearly indicates why the essay does not meet the writer's primary purpose. The essay focuses on the Vital Road project completed under the leadership of Captain Young that opened the Sequoia National Park's giant forest to visitors. The best answer is not F because the essay does not describe changes that roads have brought about from the park's establishment to the present day. In answer choice G, the essay does not develop the idea that Young's actions created a surge of visitors to the park. And H is not the best answer because the essay does not describe Young's military career as a whole, but rather his specific role in the construction of the road to the giant forest. So I hope that you have all of these answer choices correct on your test, and you and your partner or small group, when you worked together, you had the best answer choice and why it was the best answer choice, and you also had justified all of the reasons why the other responses were not the best answer. So you know I have another challenge for you, right? So we have one more passage. In passage 5, you have had an opportunity to hear from me, your teacher, as far as justifying the responses. You have heard from others in your class as a whole group or as smaller groups, and then you've worked with a partner on justifying these reasons. So it's your turn now to work on passage 5 all by yourself. Passage 5 is the curious case of, and I am not even going to try to pronounce the type of this Latin word that is for, I don't even remember what that was. It was some kind of animal. I'm not even going to try to pronounce that. But remember we talked about when you didn't understand a noun and what that noun meant, that you could just use something different to replace it. So I'm going to call this the curious case of TD. All right, the curious case of TD. Now I want you to go through and I want you to justify the best answer choice for each question. The correct item numbers are 61 through 75. Because you are working independently, I'm not going to ask that you justify why the other answer choices are not the best answer choices. So you're just justifying why the correct answer according to ACT is the best answer. Remember that you already have all of the correct answers. Those were given to you in lesson 6, I believe. So go back to lesson 6 if you don't have all of the correct or best answers, and find that list and make sure that you have the best answers so that you're working with the correct ones, because you don't want to justify that an answer is correct and it's the wrong answer choice. So until next time, happy learning.